Hi, friends. I am super excited to introduce you to my friend, Jody Moore. And Jody Moore is a life coach and has an amazing business. She currently coaches over 6,000 active clients in her coaching practice. Over the course of the past 7 years, she has coached over 20,000 amazing humans. And what's really special about Jody is that she was actually one of my trainers. So we have known each
Yay.
other, check this, Jody, 16 years.
Oh my goodness, how could that be? We both
16
look so
years.
young still.
And in my corporate job, Jody was my trainer. And then a little bit later, we became trainers together. And actually, a lot of my best life lessons were a snarky comment from Jody Moore over a donut. Jody, you live in Portland, Oregon now?
Close. Spokane,
Close.
Washington. Pacific Northwest. It's all the same.
Something not in California anymore, which means it's
Right.
dumb. In Washington, with her 4 kids, husband used to have super stressful job. Now you guys are running your business together,
Yeah.
and you love donuts.
I do love donuts. Oh, yeah.
And every
That's
time I see a donut something, I want to send it to you.
You sent me donut socks.
I've also
Do you
wanted to
remember that?
send you donut mugs and donut t-shirts, but our style has always been a little bit different. So I wasn't sure if you'd wear a donut t-shirt on camera.
The donut socks are a big hit at my house, though. My daughter steals them. Frequently, my teenage daughter.
um,
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me on. I
I'm
want to add that yeah, I've known Tasha a very long time and we had so much fun together. What weren't those like the glory days when we were
those were
trainers together?
those were the glory
Like
days
we
where
were
they
both
paid
kind
for
of in
our
our
lunch
element.
every day. That was
Yeah.
great.
I think we're both like naturally good teachers and
Hmm.
coaches. And so we got to do that with brand new people who were so excited to be there. They weren't like burned out yet on the
Totally.
corporate grind. And also you helped me when I had gestational diabetes eat fewer donuts. So that was nice of you too, like
Yeah,
with
I'm
your
all
subtle
about making
snarky
sure everyone's
comments.
their best self.
So
Yeah,
fun.
we had a lot of fun. And then you started your life coaching business, and a couple years later, I left my corporate job, and so then we were able to connect and talk shop.
Hmm.
And we run different businesses, but I think with the
Hmm.
same objective, right?
Yes,
Which is
helping people.
helping people be their best self or be okay with whoever it is they are.
Yes.
And I was so excited. We've been talking about this podcast. You called it what, the duet that no one knew they needed, like Zac Efron
Yeah.
and Hugh Jackman. And we're going to talk about
Which one am I in
perfectionism.
this scenario? I'm Hugh Jackman. You're younger. You're
Yeah, I think
Zac
that sounds
Efron.
that sounds right.
That's good. I'll be either.
Um, we're going to talk about perfectionism, and I was so glad you brought this up when you sent me the message the other day, because gosh, like I think that both of our we work with probably similar people, probably
Hmm.
quite a bit of overlap just on different issues, but it is so difficult for people to move into action because they want everything to be perfect. And I spend most of my days trying to convince people that imperfect action is better than perfect inaction. And then you said, hey, can we talk about B minus is the new A?
Hmm.
And I just love that. So will you just and Jody is going to start doing some business coaching, which is awesome because holy moly, you have impacted over 20,000 people with your coaching practice. I've listened to so many of your podcasts, and you're really so smart and so good.
Well, thank
And
you.
and you trained me, and I'm so smart and so
That's
good.
right. And look how you turned out.
Yeah. So I
So,
figured that's a good thing for
and
a lot
I
of.
trained you at corporate. You figured out your business stuff on your own. But I have actually coached a lot of people through business over the last 7 years too, as I've been figuring it out
Mhm.
myself. Of course, I've been coaching myself primarily
All
through
right.
business. But yeah, I love this idea. So I'll say that I was first introduced to the concept of B minus being the goal, and excuse me, as a coach going through coach training at the life coach school. My mentor, Brooke Castillo, introduced this B minus concept. And I love it because when you first introduce this to people, they sort of go, wait, what? Because all our lives we're taught you should try to get an A. That's the goal. And it's okay to get a B minus as long as you really tried to get an A and you just couldn't for some reason. Okay, as long as you put in your best effort. But otherwise, A is the goal. Certainly you don't fail. Like that would be terrible in
Sure.
public school or right. So I'd be curious to hear what you tell your kids, but of course, as you get older and you get out into the real world, you realize that this framework of always needing to get an A is really slowing us down and even preventing us from even trying so many things. So I tell my kids when they bring home their report cards, they tend to get so far pretty good grades. My oldest son especially will get almost straight A's every time. My daughter often has mostly A's, and I'll say, what's going on here? Is it too easy for you? Do we need to like get you into some harder classes? Because I'm so proud of you, first of all, that you got such great grades, but you don't have to get good grades. And there are going to be many times in life, I hope, when you will be doing something that's too hard for you to get an A. That is where I want you to spend at least some of your time hanging out outside of what you're good at, learning things that you don't already know, and therefore you won't get A's. And I'm just always trying to kind of counter the message that they're getting, as kids, which is you should get an A. That's the best thing. What do you tell your kids, Tasha?
Well, we're Asian and it starts with A. So
it starts with A.
we're not Bejans.
Okay,
so with my kids, they're in online school, and we've had interesting conversations about grades. And the only time that they don't receive the highest marks is when they are not trying. When they're going too fast, when they're like, I'm bored, I don't like this, so I'm not going to put in any effort. So that's where our conversations have gone around for the kids, because they like where they're at, they're younger, right? So for them, it's just like, do they show up? Do they do their online stuff? Do they take their quizzes? For them, they're still at the phase where showing up gets them an A. So we just finished fifth grade, right? So she's about to go into where you have to remember things and you're judged based on the quality of your work, where things are going to get a little bit different. So we haven't really gotten there quite yet, but certainly this is a conversation I've had with my clients. So what we noticed, we did a bunch of target market research, and a lot of our clients are ex-professionals, which means they were used to being excellent, like consistently exceeds on their performance, like they were the perfect employee. And they came into entrepreneurship and they won't start until they're perfect, or they're really hard on themselves because they're perfect. And so why this is so funny is I was like, entrepreneurship is not about A performance, it's about a lot of B performance. As opposed to a small amount. It's an output game.
Yes.
And so a large amount of B quality performance will be a small amount of A performance any day. And I think for us, our philosophy is customer first, our team comes second, our ego comes third. And I think the desire in entrepreneurship to produce A quality work, so much more about our ego than it is about helping the person in front of us.
Yes.
And so if I am like, I want to show up and coach in the most perfect, right, organized way, well, who is that actually about? That's about how I come across to the other person. Where what I really need to be doing is like, what people want in a leader is someone who will show up. And I don't know, I was really thinking about this topic, and I graduated with honors from UC San Diego's, but the small honors.
Small honors?
The small honors, not the big honors, is because I was a straight A- student.
Okay.
And it was really good in high school.
Yeah.
Like for me, I was good enough to get the A, but just right on the line, so I didn't have to put in that full A effort.
Right.
Well, then I got to college and they only give you 3.7 for A minuses. But I already had those habits of good enough to be good enough.
Yeah.
but also to be able to play sports, be well-rounded, have friends, and all of that.
Yes.
And I think when we got caught up in like being very narrowly focused on
Mhm.
perfection,
Yep.
whatever that looks like, we start to really miss out on everything that's amazing and beautiful in the world.
That's right. Yeah, I love that. The reason I like to frame it around B minus is the new A is because is exactly what you said. Not just it's okay that it's not all A level, but
Right.
like no, when you're building a business or you if you have a goal that's a lofty goal, then we can't be shooting for A all the time. Like you said, that's coming from feeding our ego. I see a lot of entrepreneurs who need, for example, a beautiful website, they think, right? Before they can put themselves out there, they have to go, they have to get a professional or whatever. They pay lots of money or they put in tons of time to create a beautiful website. And we would call it an A level website. And then when they finally put it out there, it's just not quite right. People aren't responding. The message isn't right. The offer isn't right. The something's not right. And then they're really frustrated because they put so much time and money into building that website. And I'm like, we need to take that whole website down. It's not even right. It's right. So that's why B minus is not only okay, it is the goal. To your point, we want to put out B minus level work, as much of it as we can, trying to help people. And we see what works. We see what does what we're trying to do, which
Mhm.
is resonate with people, land with people, really give people the traction or the movement or the improvement we're trying to help them. Then maybe we go back and we make some of it A level.
Sure.
But B minus is where we have to begin.
Yeah, otherwise you'll never start. Well, here's a question for you. Who determines it's an A?
Yeah, really good question, right? So I love that question. One of the things I like to teach in my business course is like there's metrics that matter and there's metrics that don't matter.
Mhm.
And we want to be using metrics first of all, not anecdotal like, well, my cousin says she doesn't like the way these colors go together. Like we don't really care if your cousin is not your target market, right?
Right.
So we want metrics. But there's metrics that matter and there's metrics that don't matter. And you get to define that for yourself as an entrepreneur. But I recommend, just like you said, we define that based on what is achieving the goals I have for my business, which are usually going to be impact, whatever impact you're trying to
Yeah.
make in the world in terms of people you're helping, and revenue and metrics that lead to that, to those things. All the rest, like how many Instagram followers you have, how many people liked your post, can those things help get you some traction towards impact? Yes. But in the end, we don't really care about that stuff,
Right.
right?
And
I mean, I don't know. How do you think about that? Who determines that it's A level?
well, I think the problem with who determines it's an A level is you have someone who is inexperienced grading the paper,
Mm,
right? So let's use website as an example because both you and I are. I mean, you said it beforehand, so I would never
yeah,
say this about your website. We're
go
just like,
ahead.
our websites are the worst.
Yeah, like my website's fine, but it needs work. It needs work
Same. And
for sure.
so, like, but you have sold, I mean, my best guess at this point, based on what I know about you, 15 to $20 million in revenue. We've
Yeah.
done close to $4 million in revenue with a
Mhm.
website that's like, what do we act, at least
It's
for
like
me,
so.
what do we actually do? I'm not really sure.
It's a B
And
minus level website.
it's a B minus website. But the problem is, if I'm the one, I'm the entrepreneur and I'm new at my business, whatever it is, I'm also the one judging the work. That would
Yeah.
be like having a third grader write a paper and then judge their own. I think this is an A, or I think this is not an A, or
Mm,
it's a standard, right? If I were to compare some of my business practices to your business practices, that wouldn't even be a fair comparison, right?
mhm,
Because we have different stories, different levels of experience, different mentorship, like all of these things that are so different.
mhm.
So the standard we use, like the rubric, I guess, for what
Yeah.
is an A is flawed to begin with which I think just makes confidence, like it's so much harder to help people if I'm comparing my thing to your thing when you've
Mhm,
had 5 years of training and I've had
mhm,
5 minutes of training and I'm looking
mhm.
at your thing. So I I think that it's either we will judge it ourselves and then we'll start looking at things like typos. I think you and I probably have the same opinion on typos.
What is your opinion on typos?
If you're upset about my typo, please send an email to typos@emergesalestraining.com and I'll give you a prize.
Yeah, I always say typos are my brand. They're part of my
I
brand.
say,
Like,
I had some good typos the other day, and I said, I'm role modeling the like not having perfection holding me
yeah,
back from
there you
doing
go.
this post.
Oh yeah, totally.
Once I did a speech and the formatting of the slides were off, and so I stood up and like when they converted, and I told them that if you guys find a formatting error, I want you to stand up and scream at the top of your lungs, and I have prizes for you. And so we just turned it into a game because I have way too many people to help to triple and quadruple check my typos.
Yeah. Now, I will say this. I get that for some people it's distracting, right? Like I couldn't care less if you have a typo in your presentation. So it's not going to prevent me from hearing the message. And there are people that really care about that and really study that and really that's their thing. I get it. Like we're not saying that we don't strive for excellence and all of that. But the point is you can't do everything at a level. You just can't.
Right.
And I should say you can, but you're really going to slow down your progress. You can't, there's people out there that need your help, that want whatever it is that you offer. And we get in our own way when we get hung up on these little things that do not matter. It really doesn't matter in the end, right?
Yeah. Well, I just think about, Jody, what would you say when you think about leaders that you've admired or people that have helped you?
Yeah.
Why have they helped you?
Yeah.
Or
One
what
of the things,
stands out to you about
yeah,
them?
I mean, we can tell when somebody cares about us, when they hear us, when they're empathetic, but they push us, they tell us the truth, right? I when I think about a leader or a teacher or mentor or coach who's helped me, it's always been something that I feel about me when I'm with that person. It's not
Mm-hmm.
about them,
Yeah.
right? This is why I have coaches that will say to me like, well, how can I be a successful coach when I still have this issue with my mom that I haven't worked through? I'm like, oh, you think it's about you. It's not about you. It's about the people you're trying to help. Like when I delivered my baby, my OB was a man. He'd never had a baby. How could he possibly help me? Well, because he can study all that he needs to know to help deliver a baby. Like you can study, you don't obviously you want to practice what you preach. You want to be a student of your own work, but it's in the end, it's not about you. It's about your client or customer. And we just have a hard time as humans getting out of our own way.
Yeah. Well, a couple things you made
But
me think of.
I want to hear, Tasha, your thoughts on this. Like, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, there's a little bit of a lag. Well, first of all, you sent me to your OB and he is an excellent OB. And then my insurance changed. So true on the OB situation.
Dang it.
Um, Second, I was really like, I get caught up in status, which is probably funny for people, but I just say it's a lot of hard work to appear this effortless. So it's a trap for me that I fight all the time. And my friend sent me, who's my business partner now, she sent me this quote and said, I saw that you were perfect and I loved you. I saw that you were not perfect and I loved you more. And when I look at the people that I admire the most, it is this they strive for excellence despite their imperfections. That's what makes like me so much more like I respect them so much more because of what they've overcome in order to go toward excellence, not because they're excellent. So when I think about the difference between excellence and perfectionism, I think excellence is other centered. Perfectionism again is turned inward. But when I look at, we'll use our little joke as an example, is the donuts. I mean, how did you even concentrate on training when you wanted donuts so badly and you couldn't have them because you were pregnant? To me, like that's a silly example, but it's a new level of respect when people are overcoming right distraction or their imperfections or their cravings or whatever right? When I first met you, you were very, very, very pregnant. And I remember you sitting on the desk because like your feet hurt. And this is as a new hire. And you showed up despite how uncomfortable you were. You did an amazing job. Like that, those are the things that create respect and trust way more, I think. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I think to your point, as human beings, and this is what the social scientists all say, is that we're actually not attracted to perfection. We admire it sometimes, but we're not really, it's not what connects us as human beings. What we're attracted to is authenticity. So
Mhm.
when we see that somebody's not perfect, because we know nobody's perfect, right? When we see that side of them, we actually are able to connect. And if you think about as entrepreneurs, as business owners,
Mhm.
part of what we're trying to do is to help our customers know that they can trust us and that we're relatable. And so showing your imperfection is a part of what helps people feel connected to you. I always, when I speak to youth or young girls or teenagers about confidence, I try to reinforce this message that actually people love you more when they see that you're real than when they think that you're perfect.
Mhm.
Um, I, yeah, I, I, you think about when we get together and we start sharing embarrassing stories. That's when we feel
Yes.
connected to one another. Even with a lot of the clients I work with are women who are in the thick of raising kids and they're trying to be more confident and trying not to yell at their kids and all of that. And I should have worn my t-shirt today that says world's okayest mom,
I've seen you on
because
that.
one of the things that's helped me so much is to stop trying to be an amazing mom. Stop trying to be the world's best mom. I just embrace like, listen, there's some things about being a mom that I'm really good at. And then there's a whole bunch of others that I'm terrible at. They just don't align with I'm working on it. Like I love my kids fiercely, but I'm half a great mom and half a hot mess. And
Yeah.
so when I can embrace that in myself, then I become ironically more confident. We think confidence comes from believing that we're great moms or great salespeople or great coaches or
Right.
great entrepreneurs. No, it comes from I'm great at some of it and I'm not good at some of it. Because when you embrace all of that, you can reach out for help, you can
Right.
be real and authentic and connect, and you can stop pretending. And that's to me what confidence is. And as business owners, we have to be willing to embrace that, not only for the sake of us and our business, but it really does genuinely help our clients move forward, I think, and customers.
Yeah, I agree with that. What would you say to someone who thinks imperfection and credibility don't go together?
Yeah.
So many of the people we work with, they want to be seen as credible.
Yes.
And so there's this gap. If I'm trying to be right, if I'm okay with being imperfect, then I won't be credible. So what do you say
Yes.
about
I disagree that perfection and credibility are the same thing. I think that credibility actually comes from honesty. And I think back to an Instagram video I saw with Glennon Doyle. If anybody knows Glennon Doyle, she's an
that?
author, you know her.
We like her.
I love her. So somebody asked her a question about body confidence and how do you be confident in your body? And they made the comment like, "Oh, you're so thin, you probably don't have this disordered relationship with food," which if you
Sure.
know her, of course she does have a history of eating disorder and things.
Yeah.
And what I loved about her answer was she didn't try to go into like, "Well, let me tell you," which is one of the things we all love about her, I think, in general. She's so relatable. All of herself she puts out there, right?
Right.
She said, listen, I think about my body, like at least half of my thoughts all day long are about my body and food. And did I eat too much or can I eat this thing? And that is not healthy. And that is something that I hope to work on. And, I'm sure she also shared like whatever progress she has made. But it's that honesty when she can say, this is a challenge for me. It's real. That's what gives her credibility, I think. Not someone standing up going, I've mastered this, because
Mhm.
none of us have mastered all of it ever.
Mhm.
So I think, when it comes back to like we were talking about earlier with typos and formatting errors, even things like that, when you stand up there, Tasha, and you're speaking and you say, listen, I know there might be some errors in this presentation. We're going to make a game out of it. That's what gives you credibility, your honesty, you're owning it. It's not the presentation that's perfectly done. In fact, you and I, when we used to train on customer service, used to teach that customers trust a company more that has made a mistake and then gone back and righted it
Right.
than a company that's never made a mistake. It's so
Right.
fascinating. Like, we just want people to tell the truth and to own it and do what they can to make it right. That's what we want. We don't
There-
even trust perfection. We know it's not real.
So, as a psychology nerd, I've actually read research that your credibility increases when you out the chinks in your armor from the very get-go. Like, I'm not
Yes.
sure, like giving a presentation saying, I'm not sure if it'll work. Tell me if there are any blind spots, actually increases your trust. Because when you present as, I mean, a lot of our clients have amazing products, right? And one of the downfalls is the too good to be true concept, when they're like, and it's this, and it's perfect, and it's perfect, and it's
Yes.
perfect, and it's perfect. And so then the customer is looking at, okay, well, nothing is perfect. So I need to
Right.
find some holes in there. But if you start off by acknowledging something about it, like,
Right.
yeah, this is going to be more than what you get at Costco, but let's
Mhm.
talk about some of the things that are so good about it, right? Because nothing is
Yes.
perfect.
Yes.
Then it increases trust quite a bit. So I love that credibility, that thought of credibility linked to trust. So I have a question about like the B minus work. So let's go
Okay.
back to that concept.
Okay.
What types of activities do you think fall under B minus activities?
Hmm.
I don't know if that question, hopefully,
Yeah.
you enough to know where I'm getting at with that question.
Yeah, I think so. For me, and everybody's businesses are of course are different, but I think most of us are trying to put help out into the world in some form, content,
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
it's social media, podcasting, blogs. To me, that falls in the B minus category. Like, I was just speaking again at a group, and I told them, yeah, my podcast that has over 17 million downloads, and that's how people know me. Like, they sometimes in public recognize me because of that podcast.
Yeah.
It's definitely B minus. And people laugh when I say that, and they're like, oh no, it's so good. I love your podcast. But I know it could be better. Like, I could spend more time planning out, researching every episode. You look at an NPR podcast that's
Sure.
produced in a way with like background music and voiceover from actors or whatever. And like, that's an A-level podcast. If podcasting is your business model, maybe it needs to be A-level. Podcasting is not my business model. It's how I support my coaching practice. So my podcast, my Instagram posts, my emails that go
Mhm.
out, anything that I have to kind of mass produce over
Right.
and over again is going to be B minus level. But I've been producing a podcast every week for 6 years.
Right.
Like, to your point, all of those B's add up to an A in
To
the
an
end.
A business.
Yeah, better than doing, fewer A level things
Yeah. So
in
what do
the
you
end.
think your business would be like if you did 3 podcasts a year at the NPR level? Do you think
Yeah,
do
right?
you think you'd
Like,
have 6,000 active clients right now?
no way.
Do you
No
think you'd have
way.
6 clients right now?
I doubt it. And that it goes back to, I love so much what you said in the beginning, which is it has to be your customer, then your team, then your ego. Because I have to set my ego aside. I mean, even I don't know if we want to, I would classify this as ego. I remember a long time ago when I first started, my dad said, you need to be careful what you say on that podcast, because once you put something out there, you can never take it back, and you could offend somebody or say the wrong thing. And, you just need to be really careful. And I was like, Dad, I could never do what I'm trying to do in the world with that thought. Like,
Right.
of course, I'm not trying to offend anybody. Of course, that's never my intention. But if I go into it scared that I'm going to say the wrong thing and I can never take it back and I could be canceled, you know,
Right.
I can't possibly do my job. Like, I'm on the back burner. I'm just trying to help someone. And
Right.
if it offends somebody in the process, I will apologize and insist that that was
Mhm.
never my intention. And whether they choose to forgive me or not is totally up to them. But I got to go help people.
Right.
And I might say the wrong thing at times. Yeah, it's just so fascinating, right? And this is why so many people, I don't know if you see this, but this is why so many people get stalled out because they're afraid to put themselves out there. And one of the things I love that we teach in coaching is the more willing you are to feel negative emotion, the more successful you will be.
Ooh,
Isn't that
very.
crazy? Like
Keep
negative
going.
emotion is the currency for achieving your goals. Because if I want to go help people, I have to be willing to be afraid or willing to be embarrassed or willing to feel insecure or willing to just be overwhelmed and confused. And if I'm willing to, there's nothing I can't do. Even you take like a weight loss goal, I have to be willing to feel a little bit of deprivation, a little bit of
Yeah.
whatever. Like negative emotion is the currency to your goals and dreams.
That's so, I love talking to you because I mean, I'm sure people can hear how like aligned we are. And
Yeah.
just makes me so excited all the time because we're all like, yeah, and yeah.
Yes.
I got a question the other day that struck me that was like, how do I avoid feeling overwhelmed? Or I'll get, how do I avoid feeling fear? And I was like, is that the goal or is making money in your business the goal? Like what, right? Because we're business people that are, well, obviously we want to do ethically with impact, right? But is the business's job to return profit or is the business's job to keep you from being overwhelmed or fearful? And I'm like, if I'm not overwhelmed, if I don't have sweaty armpits, something's wrong in my business
I don't have sweaty
because
armpits.
all day, every day, probably not you,
Oh no,
probably,
I do.
probably not you, but like, I don't think not, I'd rather have a profitable business, sweaty armpits, and feel a little bit overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
or a lot overwhelmed or nervous or scared than to never be overwhelmed, never be scared, have non-sweaty armpits. I suppose that's some
Mm-hmm.
people, and to have no profit in my business, no impact, etc. Right. And so I just
Yeah.
agree with you so much that avoiding negative emotion is not the goal.
Right.
Helping
And
people is the goal.
you can get better at negative emotion and then it's not so challenging to do. So I always tell my clients, let's just get better at overwhelm and let's get better at fear. Let's get better at just allowing it. Take a deep breath. It's going to move through your body. It's not like you have the flu.
Right.
We talk about emotions that way, right? We're like, I have anxiety. Oh no, what am I going to do? I'm like, no, you just are a human with a brain. That's why you have anxiety. So just take some breaths. It'll cycle through you. When my kids come to me and say, I'm really nervous, I'm like, well, let's just get good at being nervous. That will be really useful later in life.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, the alternative, like you're describing, is I could just not go pursue goals and my dreams and helping people and achieving what I want to. Instead, I could just sit home, watch Netflix, eat chocolate and drink Diet Coke and just I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't be nervous. I wouldn't be overwhelmed. We could do that. The problem is there's no peace in that either.
That's right.
Like that actually gets really boring. Um, I just took my kids to the zoo this weekend and I felt really bad. The animals were clearly all very depressed, like
Mhm.
not moving, like the spider monkeys that are supposed to be swinging on the branches and
Right.
everything. And they're just all sitting there staring at their feet. Like, I, I was like, this is not how monkeys are supposed to live. They're not supposed to be in a cage. And
Mhm.
that's what happens to us when we are afraid of feeling negative emotion, afraid of pursuing our goals, is we start sitting around too much. And then we say, I'm bored. I'm not fulfilled. I'm I'm restless. And we just start filling it with food and Netflix and whatever shopping online, which we're trying to fill this
Mhm.
human need that we have to create, contribute and create and make an impact and help people. So there's no peace either way. So do you want to choose the discomfort of stagnation or do you want the discomfort of growth? I
Yeah,
want the discomfort of movement and progress and growth and contribution myself.
that's so good. That's
Yeah.
so good. One of the things I've always wanted you to come on here and talk about is invitations to sales appointments and
Okay.
thoughts.
Okay.
Because
Invitations.
your jam is the thoughts.
Yes.
And we haven't really talked about thoughts so much today.
Let's talk
So
about
it would be very
thoughts.
strange if we did not have
That
a
is my jam.
conversation about thoughts.
Yes.
And where a lot of our clients get stuck is I don't want to be pushy. I don't want to be salesy.
Mm-hmm.
So get stuck in analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me your thoughts on the thoughts around that.
Yes. Well, and these are all thoughts, right? Like B minus work is better than A work is a thought. It needs to be perfect is a thought. Like, so these are all thoughts, and thoughts are really, like you said, my jam. And I think what ultimately creates the results. So when it comes to sales, like I don't want to be pushy, I don't want to be salesy. Those again are focused on us and our own egos and how people might perceive us.
Yeah.
So we've got to make the mental shift over to helping the client or customer.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have as a coach, if I have a client in front of me who I know could benefit tremendously from going through my program, I am not afraid to be pushy or salesy with that client personally for their sake.
Sure.
I want to see their life get better. I want them to get the benefit. And I'm always very clear that like this is how I check myself, I should say, to see like, do I just have an agenda? Am I being pushy because I want their money here? Or
Right.
is this about the client? This is how I check it. How do I feel if that client says, yes, I want this help and I love the way you offer it, but there's this other business over here offering it and I'm going to go buy it there. And most of the time I can get my head in the space of I would be like, awesome, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not the coach for everybody. My program is not the program for everybody. Yeah. But I do believe every human with a brain should have a coach, just like every human with teeth should have a dentist. Like, I mean, if you can.
Amen.
So if you have teeth, you probably should go to the dentist. If you have a brain, you should get a coach if you can. This should be a top priority, right? So I'm not the coach for everybody. My program is not for everybody. So as long as I'm coming from that place, I am not afraid to sell that client. I'm not selling them on me. I'm not selling them on my program. I'm selling them on themselves. I'm selling them on helping themselves in this way.
Right.
And when you are coming from that mindset, you can say what we might say are pushy things that are typically well received. But on the occasion that they're not, I'm okay with that too. Because the alternative is that I don't sell people on themselves. That is a shame. My job is to believe in my client or customer more than they believe in themselves. And so I might have to be what some of us might call pushy. Now, I do believe in you finding what's real for you. And we all have to kind of navigate the waters of like what feels like me believing in someone versus me trying to pretend to be Tasha when I'm not Tasha. Mm-hmm. And so it does take some time and some finessing, but I'll often say to a client or customer, listen, I'm going to tell you something that might be hard for you to hear, but I'm telling you because I love you. Are you ready? And so that might be a coaching situation. That might be you need to invest in yourself, whether it be here or some other program, because you're holding yourself back. And there's a lot more available. Or it's often something like you are playing the victim in your life.
Sure.
Right. So when you tell them, I'm going to tell you something that might be hard for you to hear, and I'm telling you because I care this much about you. I've very rarely had somebody be offended at it. But if they are, I'm okay with that. It's my job to tell people the truth.
Sure. Well, and you can apologize. And,
totally.
Right. And what I love about what you just said, and I would just call that as a strategist, right?
Yes.
You're like, this is how I feel in my heart. And I'm like, all right, everyone, let me just break down.
You make it math. I make it drama.
Of what Jody just did, which is called a buffer.
Okay. Tell me.
Which is called a buffer.
Yes.
Which is the idea of prepping someone for something instead of just coming at them like, boom.
Mhm.
right? When we're going to, speak from the heart, it's just so important to tell them, I'm going to tell you something that is from the heart. Are you willing to hear it? So I would
Yes.
call that buffer and gain agreement.
Yes, totally. I call it
You would call
using a
it
cushion. Very similar.
cushion.
See, I have a little bit of process too. But I think, no, I do think like when it comes to the selling part, whether you're selling a product, you're selling an opportunity to try out the business opportunity, right? I get it that we all get at times that nervous, like, oh no, here comes this part. But when you're willing to tell people the truth because you care about them, it's a
Mhm.
totally different experience.
So what do you think are the two different thoughts if you were just to like say, this is the thought that's not helpful, this is the thought that is helpful in that scenario? How would you explain that?
I think the unhelpful thoughts, if I'm the person doing the selling, the thoughts that don't serve me usually have me in the sentence. I don't want to appear pushy. I don't want them to think this about
Sure.
me. I don't want them to be offended. It's always about me. The thoughts that are way more helpful are about them. Like it's my job to help them improve their life. I'm doing them a disservice if I don't really tell them the truth. I know they will improve their lives in this way. And it's not my job to push anyone, but it's my job to believe in them more than they believe in themselves. So do you see how the client or
Yeah.
customer is the focus of the thought that is way more useful? And we as human beings read that in one another. I can tell when somebody's telling me the truth because they care about me versus they just want me to buy their product. They're kind of needy, desperate, whatever.
Yeah, I love that.
It's
And what I
different.
heard you talking about was on one side, the unhealthy thought was really an overstepping of our own role. Like it's
Mm,
not, I've heard you say so many times, it's not our responsibility what other people think of us, right? I
yes,
don't want them to think X, Y, and Z. That's an overstepping of our role. But in this healthy thought, it's like, well, my role is to explain these things, to invite to these things, right?
that's
To
right.
share with them how this is going to help them.
That's right.
I know we only have a few more minutes, but we got to have this last. So I do this. I do my thoughts. I do B minus work. I do a
Yeah.
lot of it. I kind of set down my ego. But Jody, what if I fail?
Yeah.
Is failure
Well,
real?
we've talked about this recently, haven't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. Failure is a thought. In other words, it's not a fact because failure can be defined in a lot of different ways, right? So one person might say, I want to sell 10 of these things, and they sell five, and they may say, I failed. Another person may say, okay, I sold five and I figured out what's working and partly what's not working.
Mhm.
So failure is always just a thought, but also another thought that I like. Well, let me back up before I go to the other one. One of the things when I first started my business 8 years ago was I didn't really know where I was going. I didn't necessarily have a very specific end goal. And I'm not saying that's a good thing, but that was just me. I was just like, I just need to help people with this. And let's just see, maybe we could make some money. And I don't know, we'll figure it out as we go. But as I went through, I did definitely want to make money at it. I didn't want to just do it as a charity. And I wanted it to be worth my time and things. What I told myself over and over again was the only way I fail is if I quit. Like I remember having in my head this idea that if I wanted to go to Disneyland and I didn't know how to get to Disneyland, if I just kept driving and every now and then I stop and ask directions or whatever, if I didn't have a GPS, right? If I just kept going and it was like, hey, am I getting closer to California? Is this the right way? Then eventually, if I didn't quit, I would end up at Disneyland. And it might take me a long time that way, but I remember thinking that about my business. Like, if I'm just willing to do this forever and I'm not in a big rush to get to some end goal, then there's no way I won't succeed at it. And so
Right.
that I didn't have a lot of pressure on my business. I didn't have pressure on myself. I was just kind of like on a drive. Let's enjoy the drive and let's stop and ask directions as we go so that we make sure we're headed where we're trying to. So that's number one. Don't put all this pressure on yourself, because goals are good. I have goals now. I like them to drive me, but they're still just arbitrary made up numbers. So if I don't hit them, I'm like, well, I didn't hit the arbitrary number and date that I made up. Who cares? Let's try something else. But also, second thing I want to add is that I love the idea that not failing is not the goal either, which goes back to what we said earlier, right? About B minus work and all of that. The goal isn't to not fail. The goal is to try as many things and go as big as I can, and to try to help as many people as I can, and to grow and develop myself as possible, which means some of them won't work. So sometimes when we're not failing, if that's how we want to define it, I know for myself, it just means I'm not pushing myself to my capacity, just like my kids in school, right? You're getting all A's. That might mean you're in too easy of classes. Maybe we should put you in an honors level class and push you.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think
Yeah.
that's right. Can I share the conversation we had about failure when I
Please
started my
do.
business?
Yes.
So I don't know what the context was, because I'm typically not averse to messing up big.
Yeah.
But we had a conversation and you said, let's play. It was like, basically, let's play a game. I was like, okay, I'm in. I want you to go fail 3 times this month.
Yes.
And do you remember this
I
at all?
remember this. Yes. This was in the
And
beginning. You were just starting out.
I mean, just had left my job, probably first month.
Yes. Right.
And I said, okay. So I went out and I had some no sales, right? I had some complimentary coaching calls. I had some no sales. And I called you. I said, I did it. So here's what was really interesting. Jody gave me a goal to fail, not a goal to succeed.
Yes.
In pursuing the goal to failure, I was unable to achieve it.
You failed at failing.
I failed at failing. So I called and I said, okay, well, I had a webinar and the whole tech failed. I spent $1,000 trying to put people in. The tech failed. And so I failed. Did I win my prize? Right? And Jody's like, did you fail or did the tech break? Well, I guess the tech broke. Okay, well, go try again. I said, okay, I'm coming back next week. Had some no sales. And I said, I had some no sales. I failed. Right? Because it was the paradigm. And you said, did you fail or did you have some no sales? I guess I had some no sales. And you said, go try again. And basically, what ended up happening after several weeks was I failed at failing. And I actually now have the belief that failure, it's not even a thought. It's just like straight up fake. It's the monsters under the closet that our kids complain about, that when you shine a light on them, they don't even exist.
That's right.
Because I was unable to fail. And so when you actually look at the thing that you call a failure, you're like, did you fail or did you this?
Right.
It's like, wait a second. I don't even know if that's
true.
If that's real. So
it's true. It's just a made up construct, especially in this world of entrepreneurship. Like, we're just making up goals for ourselves, which is great, but it's all just made up. So if you're going to label it something heavy like failure, make sure that you're able to really coach yourself around that. Most people aren't really great at that. So we just are like, that wasn't a failure. Just the tech just went out.
And what's interesting about that webinar is I still made sales on the replay.
Right? So we could say you actually sold some stuff is what happened. Because as human beings, we're just not good at not making it so heavy. Like, what we hear when we failed is, I'm a failure, which is never true.
Right.
Right. And that's never going to serve us. That's going to put us right back into that ego place.
Yeah.
So look at you now.
Look
failing.
At me now.
You're so good at failing now.
I mean, have I done it? But because it wasn't permanent,
right?
Like, that got worked out of me. All the massive things that, I mean, they're pretty close to failures that I've encountered, just feel like blips.
Right.
Yes. In the journey. I do have one clarifying question, because I knew we'd run out. I'm so sorry. Of time.
All right.
You said no pressure on the goals, but what if I need the money?
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to get money, right? Like you never need the money. This is what I tell people is, I personally think when you have a baby business that's just starting out, then not that you can't make money very quickly, you can. But so many people are looking at that baby like, where's my money, baby? Just like, it's a baby. Like it's going to take
Yes.
some nurturing and some experimenting. So I don't like people to put tons of
Yeah,
pressure.
agreed.
If like you're going to have to pay your mortgage and groceries and everything based on your business, that's a lot of pressure. You can do it. You'll need a coach for sure to get your head in the right space, but there's so many ways to make money. Like the money is the least interesting part. It's the boring part. Find a way to support your business for a little while if necessary, and support your
Yeah.
life if necessary while you build that business. There's no shame in that. I don't think. If I really needed the money, I'd go wait tables or something, and then build this business.
I think
Um,
that that is such an important point. The amount of pressure we put then makes us attached to the outcome and then makes us salesy and pushy.
yes.
And I do think that there is a lot of shame around, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go all in. And oh my gosh, that's a lot.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, if you can do that, great. It's going to require a lot of keeping your head in the right space because you cannot slip into making it about you and be effective.
Yep.
So I'm like, listen, support that business for a little bit in whatever way until that business can support you.
That's my new favorite quote.
Where's my
Baby,
money,
where's my
baby?
money?
Seriously, that's what we do.
Now, do you have any resources for people listening to this around
Yes.
my thoughts and business?
Thank you for
Whatever
asking.
you can get from Jody is awesome. You can tell, hopefully you can tell. And Jody, I want to thank you for the influence you have been in my life. I can make
Oh.
a list of defining moments, which I probably should someday, in snarky conversations over lunch that stuck with me really for my whole life. So I really want to say thank you for laughing at me when I didn't leave the phone number. Thank you for telling me my marriage was supposed to be easy, not hard in the beginning. I don't know if you remember
Just
that
let it be
conversation.
easy, Tasha. It's okay.
Yeah, relationships aren't supposed to be so hard when you're dating. They're supposed to be easy. Um, Donuts are delicious. Failure is not real. Stop doing webinars, start coaching, like all these really, really big things. So thank you.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah.
Um, so what
Well,
resources
yeah.
do you have for the people?
Well, a couple things. So I would love to give your people, I have a download that is 50 thoughts that successful people think. And as you said, I study thoughts and I've studied successful people. And so you're going to want to get that. It's totally free download and it's really pretty and you can put it up on your wall and it's at jodymoore.com/success. But I also have a podcast called Better Than Happy that has all of this type of stuff if you like what Tasha and I are talking about. And I've even been doing this summer a bonus series that are specific to business.
Cool.
They're all labeled business minded bonus episodes. So that's probably the best place to go get some more good free help.
Awesome. And I hope that you all get one of Jody's comments that changes the trajectory
Yes.
of your path.
Thank you.
Thank you
Tash.
so much for coming on and enjoying this conversation with me. I hope it was helpful to everyone who's watching, listening, whatever. So I appreciate you, my friend.
Love you. Thanks for having me, Tash.